Jesus. Good morning, world. Yes, Defo gets to pick line out, so he goes away. Well, actually, that actually would be very Defo, is he gets to pick line out, so then he's now a free man. He's fine. We did a no filter. He has, I don't know, he's turned into like a 95-year-old. He has doctor's appointments like 3 times a day, every day now. I don't know. I know something about a doctor. He told me that, so he's not here. But I am. Lucky you. Good morning, one and all. Here in the Defo Show with Lubie. No Defo, but you do have Lubie. We will be kicking it old school. By we, I mean me. Kicking it old school today with the one and only Tony Segreto at about 8:30. Always thank you to Texas Roadhouse and the one and only. Another one and only. I guess you can. How many one and only can you be? The one and only Tony Segreto and the fantastic Ed Garcia from Texas Roadhouse will join me, you, the world this morning as well. And here's my kitten. So that's always a good time. And she's on the screen. Oh, okay. This is fun. This is starting out so well. Cerny's favorite thing. Cecilia, move Cecilia. So, anyways, a lot going on in the world of sports. Yes, no football, but you have basketball getting in full swing again, like we talked about yesterday. We were off Monday. I watched none of any of the All-Star festivities, like none. This is new. I used to watch all of it. I loved the three-point contest. I loved the slam dunk. I loved the early days of the skill competition when it wasn't maybe the best event. I used to watch all of it. I loved it, and I loved the All-Star game. Yeah, it was a lot of showboating and whatever early, but there was some competition. And the fourth quarter was real basketball. Fourth quarter, the guys really cared, and they'd get into it. And the last 2 to 3 minutes of the fourth quarter was, I don't know if it was a war exactly, but they went at it, and I loved it. And now it's stupid and it's dumb. And literally, you have that's my favorite. Is the players themselves talking about, yeah, there's no competition. It's hard to get your focus on it when you're worried about your own team and you're trying to win a title and you're trying to get the playoffs and this and that. Like you have Trae Young, the guy who's known. I don't know if he's a slacker because Trae Young's. It's so funny because lately, I mean, if you watch Fridays. Big Board with the professor Ken Jacobson. It was after Caitlin Clark set the women's modern day all time scoring record in college basketball, and then she ended up putting up 49 points, and she's taken the women's college basketball world by storm, and even the sports world by storm. The professor made what is a very apt comparison, and it's weird because Trae Young in the pros is, I guess, diluted, even though he's in the All-Star game every year, even though he is one of the prominent players in the league, even though he did help lead a team to a conference finals and take the eventual champion Milwaukee Bucks to 6 games. Trae Young is not Luka Doncic. He was in that trade, and he's sort of a guy that, for all his talents, underwhelms from a winning standpoint. I will not fight that. But the professor made a comp Friday that's apt. If you look at their stats, look at how they play, especially in college. Again, I don't know why Trae Young wasn't in college that long ago. Like Trae Young in college was a big deal. Trae Young, which is very rare. Usually it's like random group like players from like Eastern Michigan and Texas Corpus Christi and that lead the country in scoring, lead the country in assists. It's very rare to have the same person do both. And it's even more rare to have them in a power five, let alone a team that's contending. Well, Trae Young did that. Trae Young at Oklahoma led the country in points per game and led the country in assists per game at Oklahoma when they were a top five team most of the year, where they were a contending team most of the year. Trae Young was a fantastic college player. Trae Young was this, though. Trae Young was one of the first guys ever, not Steph. Steph Curry didn't start shooting long ass threes till he was established in the pros. Like, people forget the early days of Steph. He shot threes. He was always good at shooting threes. But he wasn't jacking them up from fucking ridiculous. When he first came out of Davidson, he was not doing that. Even when they first were going to like the finals, he started to do it because he realized he could make the shot and it gave him more space to get to the basket. Steph Curry was a guy that went to the basket a lot and was a great passer. Steph Curry is actually an underrated passer, and he's a fantastic ball handler. And he used the long three to set up going to the basket. He started doing it more and more because he got better at it. But the idea that Steph Curry was doing that in college is a load of garbage. Like, and again, Steph Curry was in college that long ago. Like, the fact that people forget Steph Curry at Davidson is weird. First of all, he was a two that switched over to a one. It was a weird, awkward transition. People wondered if it could work. His first year at Davidson, he was a playmaker who got to the basket and was really good inside the three-point line. And he could also shoot threes. He wasn't like jacking it up. Damian Lillard, a guy who's great at jacking it up from anywhere in the pros. At Weber State, Damian Lillard was not jacking it up. Like, what Caitlin Clark does, I get it. She's really maybe the first woman to do it. Like, women don't just chuck the ball. Fine. Or whatever you want to call it, because chucking has a negative connotation. But chuckers aren't always bad players. Chuckers aren't always Deion Waiters. Like, again, Pete Maravich was a chucker. Trae Young is a chucker. Trae Young's also one of the top 20 to 25 players in the NBA. Like, being a chucker doesn't necessarily mean you're bad. Being a chucker just means you shoot the ball with reckless abandon and can be wildly inefficient, and usually it's hard to win for those players. But it doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad. Caitlin Clark, if you look at how she plays basketball and you look at her stats, very reminiscent of Trae Young at Oklahoma. And for some reason, people have lost their mind to that because Trae Young's not considered one of the greatest college basketball players, and Caitlin Clark is. But is Caitlin Clark ever mentioned as the greatest? Not now, not by the modern day person who forgets fucking Taurasi and Bird and Lieberman Klein and Cheryl Miller and Swoops. Most people who watch women's college basketball for years do not put Clark in that same breath. You do what you want with it. She is one of the greatest ever. She is an all-time great. I'm not fighting her. I've never fucking watched her. I'm not gonna. I don't care. What I've seen of her game and the way she plays is the fucking woman version of Trae Young. I don't know why that hurts your feelings. I don't know why people get like pissed. That's not a bad comp. Trae Young was fucking great in college, and he's great in the pros. He looks like he's lazy at times, but it's only because he's been allowed to shoot from anywhere. I like Caitlin Clark. And Caitlin Clark, again, jacks up really long shots. They're bad shots. I know in this day and age we love them because it's the new dunk, I guess. Shooting stupid threes is the fun way of playing basketball. No, it's a stupid-ass way of playing basketball. They're inefficient, and they usually kill momentum. Once in a while, you make it from 40, and it ties the game, and everyone cheers. Usually, it's Trae Young, and you're shooting it when your team's in a close game, and it fucks with momentum. But again, Caitlin Clark is great. She's fantastic. She's very reminiscent to Trae Young at Oklahoma. And I don't know why that pisses people off. It's weird because Trae Young was great at Oklahoma. He was a top 10 pick. He was traded for a guy that's probably a top 3 player in the league. So he must have been pretty good to be traded for Doncic. And it wasn't questioned at the time. And he's gone on to be an all-star almost every year of his career. And again, lead a team to a conference finals. with a bunch of guys that were good players that no one had really knew. So it's a weird that it pisses people off. I just find it funny. Ken, who brought it up Friday, is getting in arguments with people. It's like, why are they arguing about like Trae Young's good? It's not like he's Deion Waiters. Well, Kalen Clark reminds me of Deion Waiters. No, Kalen Clark is very reminiscent of Trae Young at Oklahoma. But anyways, I digress immensely. That was a weird tangent. Just wanted to get to a little college basketball. I do want to get to NBA, and the guy we love talking NBA with, he is the man that started where you find a lot of our South Florida content. The 5 Reasons Sports Network, the one and only Ethan Skolnick, as Defo likes to call him, has joined me. Good morning, Scoop. How you doing, my friend?
Good morning, Mr. Lubie. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, we brought up, I'm sure you've paid attention to the Kalen Clark thing a lot more than I have, honestly. I haven't watched really any of it. And our buddy said, because of the way she shoots in college, and it's probably, that's why people love it. Women don't usually, we haven't seen the quote unquote chucker or whatever you call it now. Chucker is a negative term. People from our age and older hear chucker and they think the shitty guy that you never want to throw the ball in the pickup game because wherever he is, he's going to throw it and he never makes it, but he's going to shoot it 20 times. Chucker can also mean a guy like Trae Young who shoots it inefficiently from anywhere, but also is good. So he brought up to him, she reminds him of Trae Young at Oklahoma, the guy that did lead the country in scoring and assists. But people see Trae Young now with the Hawks, who they want to trade and no one wants to get, and they don't want, like, which I think it's a decent comp, to be brutally honest. But anyways, so yeah, that's what I was lamenting on, because people have been yelling at him. What do you mean, Trae Young? What are you talking about? She's like, Steph. And it's like, Steph didn't do this in college. Like, if you watch Steph at Davidson, he wasn't shooting 35-footers. Trae Young was literally the only dude in college that did that. And he got crap for it even then.
Well, I think that Trae was one of those who was influenced by what Steph started to do in the pros. And I think we've seen a whole line of them. I mean, Steph and Dame, have pretty much been the two that did that. But again, I mean, to call somebody a chucker, they have to be inefficient, I think. I think if you're to say someone's a chucker, their effective field goal percentage can't be that good because they're going to be, making under 30% of their threes. That's not what Caitlin Clark is doing. I think that, in the WNBA game is going to be more structured, I think, than what she has in college. And similarly to the way that the NBA is more structured than what the men have a lot of times in college. And if you have one person who is, much better than the others, they're going to get the opportunity to shoot it from wherever the hell they want. Now, again, how her game translates, I think it's going to translate fine. I mean, she's been a star all the way through at every level. She's a huge reason why women's basketball ratings are up. And so, we have these kind of phenomenon every few years, and she's certainly been that, and she sustained it. She's also sustained it now with a lot of, with some public criticism and what we kind of do, which is you build someone up and then you tear them down. And I think that's where we're at right now. Trae Young is a very good NBA player who's a flawed NBA player. And those exist too. Trae Young's probably never going to win a championship as a top 2 on his team, just like James Harden has. There are certain guys who you don't look to for that. There's only a certain number of players who have. And so I don't think it's bad to be compared to Trae Young, but I think the difference between Trae and Caitlin is Trae was doing this and people were aware of it, but Caitlin is like a singular force right now in women's basketball. Like Trae Young wasn't single-handedly pumping the ratings of the sport. He was a novelty to a certain degree and a really good player who, like you mentioned, was drafted in the top 5 and, probably shouldn't have been traded. It probably should have been Luka, but it's not the worst draft swap of all time. It's not one probably that Atlanta would make again, but and he probably will be traded in the next year or two, only because I think he's going to ask for it, and I think he'll probably end up with the Lakers. But again, enough Trae Young for the morning, but I thought I'd weigh in on that.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you walked into that. I just find it funny. Look, maybe it's not an equal comp. It's fine. I haven't watched much of Caitlin Clark. I openly own that. I just think to be totally gassed at the Trae Young, it's like, it's fine. You don't want her to be Trae Young, okay? But it's not like Trae Young was garbage. Like Trae Young was really good in college, and he's really good in the pros. And that was what my buddy was trying to say. She reminds him of what Trae Young did. Maybe she's more efficient because Trae Young's always been low 30s to mid 30s, fine. And she shoots at like 40% from three and 47% from the field. Fine. She's more efficient. She's not exactly Trae Young. Okay. I'm not even fighting about it. I don't care that much. I just think for him to say she reminds him of it isn't the most far off thing either, because that's what he did in college, learning it from guys in the pros, and that's what she's doing in college, and that's what they loved, hated about him in college, and that's what they love, hate about her in college. So I thought the comp wasn't the most ridiculous thing ever, but she's become like you saying it. Either she's beloved or hated, which women's basketball needs desperately, and they are loving desperately. A team that you talked about, she's been consistent. She's risen up the score. The team that's been consistent, risen up our South Florida area is the Miami Heat. It's been a very weird year. We've talked with you about the Heat. A lot of injuries. I think I've heard they lead the league in injuries, and that's not a joke. I laugh because it feels like this is every year now. But unlike last year, it feels like they're figuring it out, sort of. Like that 4-game losing streak was weird, or I mean, it was long in 4 games.
7-game losing
long
streak.
in 4 games. The fact they lost to 4 teams that they should have annihilated,
Mm-hmm.
but then after that, played well against the Clippers, played well against the Celtics, drubbed the Bucks, who are now in a freaking free for all, and got past a injured Sixers team. Was like, okay, you had all the injuries. I don't know what's going on with Jimmy, but you're sitting there at the 7 seed, tie with the Magic. You're a half game out of the 6. You're within striking distance of the 4, and the Cavs, as good as they played, are still the Cavs, and the Bucks are again a mess right now. So what are you? Because you make different faces than my feelings of with the Miami Heat right now, where they sit at the All-Star break as we get started for the last third of the season.
Well, I think the term used a couple years ago was dangerous loomers. I think that's kind of where they're at again. They're not the class of the conference right now. They're 30-25. It's actually the same record they took into the All-Star break last year. They are 18th in league in net rating, so they're basically flatline essentially. They're plus 0.2. So that makes that you're an average team in that sense, slightly above average, because usually they're better than their net rating because their exposure is their coach. That tends to be how that plays out. So, I think that if you look at where they're at, with all the injuries, that certainly is a reason that there's been some inconsistency, because I think it's played with guys' roles a little bit. It's also given people like Jaquez and Robinson a chance to come up. And both of them had really strong first halves or first 2/3 of the season, although Jaquez slipped a little and then started to pick it up. He came back from the groin injury. I think he was a little rusty, but then he did. But we've seen that with a lot of guys. They have a lot of guys who come back with some rust. And, now Jimmy might as well, but Jimmy also has been rested. I expect Jimmy to be back with them for the game on Friday. He's been working through stuff, obviously. And I think if you followed the social media after he went dark for a little over a week, you can see that. But they'll go as far as he takes them. I think their team is better than it was last year, particularly with the additions of Rozier and DeLon Wright. I think that they had 2 major weaknesses in my view, and they've taken steps to address both of them. They didn't have a guard who could get in the paint. And Rozier has done that. He hasn't shot the ball well, but his shot looks good. That doesn't seem to be the problem, but I can see why he's streaky. He was streaky with Charlotte as well. But so he's not somebody you count on to be a consistent knockdown shooter, but the other stuff has been there. And then DeLon Wright should provide for them some point of attack defense, which they've needed. They really have not replaced Gabe Vincent in that way. And DeLon Wright, I think, is the closest thing. He's actually better at that than Gabe is. Now, what kind of minutes he gets, I think he will get some in for Josh. And so, I think he will get until Josh is back, and that's going to be a few weeks. Rozier will be back a little bit quicker than that. It appears probably maybe even next week. So, you look at their roster; it's much better than last year. Like they were playing guys down the stretch. I mean, Cody Zeller was getting minutes for the playoffs in the playoffs for them. They go really. I mean, they got 8 guys who I think are consistent rotation players, and they'll go 12 deep in terms of people that Eric Spoelstra can use. So I like the promise of this team, but we need to see it. And I feel like, we're having the same conversation about Bam, Jimmy, and Tyler that we've had for the last 4 years. How does it work? You took Tyler out of the equation last year, and it worked all the way to the finals. Now Tyler's in the equation. They haven't really got on the floor that much together, but when they have, they've not had a lot of success. So that's really the key, because for the Heat fans who are talking about, well, put Duncan in the starting lineup or do that. No, they're going to stick with Tyler in the starting lineup, and they're trying to make this thing work one last time. And if it doesn't work, then I do think that we always see that the Heat will exchange out the third guy to try to make it work. They've done it over and over, whether it was Eddie Jones who got sacrificed or Jamal Mashburn who got sacrificed. That's typically Pat's move. So, again, I think they're fine. I don't think they're afraid of anybody in the East. It includes Boston. Obviously, Boston has separated itself as the best team in the East. Milwaukee, like you mentioned, is a mess. Philadelphia is not going to get Embiid back for a few weeks, so they're going to slip. Cleveland's played above its heads, I think. We'll see how that translates to the playoffs. And the Knicks, the Knicks, when they're healthy, are interesting, but they're not healthy right now. So there's an opportunity in the East. It's gotten better, but the West is still dominant, I think. And other than Boston, and I feel like Miami matches up fine with just about anybody else in the playoffs in the East.
Well, and that's my thing, is maybe that's why I'm optimistic, is the Heat aren't light years out of it. They went into the break playing a little bit better. Before Jimmy got left with the family issues, he was playing like Jimmy. He was being aggressive. He was being their leader. They were winning again. They were playing good basketball. So it was like, okay, maybe they're figuring this thing out. And then you look at the East, and yes, the Celtics have taken this first part very seriously, and they're playing really good basketball. And Porzingis, who I've been waiting to get injured because literally he's missed 20% of every season since his rookie year, has not gotten injured. And they've been smart with his minutes, and he's played well. I still wouldn't trust him, but they're playing really well. But again, they played well in the regular season. And like you talked about, this team is not scared of him. It's still still Tatum and Brown as their best players, and still Tatum and Brown seem to shrink in those moments against this team when they've been healthy enough. So that's my thing, is like, I just look at the East and I'm like, and I have Knicks fan friends that are so giddy, and you're always very honest about the Knicks and pointed about the Knicks. And yes, this team it feels like they're better than what they were last year. It feels like they're more game. And Brunson's legit. Like, people that write him off, like I've done, legit. But is he still one of a team that's going to go win it? I don't know. And you're still counting on Randall to be your 2 or 3, and you're still counting on all these guys that really aren't. And Anunoby, who's, again, a guy the Heat fans desperately wanted, but the Heat never really pulled the trigger because the Raptors wanted a package for a guy that never got there. He's a really good defensive player. He's a nice offensive player. But is he a number 2 or a number 3 on the team that's going to win? Like, that's my problem with the Knicks. It's a bunch of guys that are similar, that are nice players, but are they going to really contend? That's my question about everyone in the East outside of the Celtics. And so it's like, to me, when you look at the Heat, look, the team that everyone's scared to play in the playoffs doesn't mean that's the team that's going to win, right? That's just a team that is going to be a tough out. But with the Heat, it means both. We've seen that, like, with them the last 3 or 4 years with Jimmy Butler. And that's my thing. Okay, when it comes to Jimmy Butler, like, this has been a really weird year, but he's a guy that's hurt, that's competition, and he's not going to let him down and this and that. Do you still believe he's that? He's getting older, and it feels like he does have a lot more interest outside the game of basketball. And he is starting to do a Kawhi kind of screw around with playing in the regular season kind of a thing. Do you see him being Jimmy? You just said they're only going to go as far as he takes them. Do you see him being able to take them where he's taken them before?
I think I think he's still capable of it, because we've seen it recently, which I wanted to see, because he's been incredibly inconsistent with his effort this season, which has made it hard to really tell. He has not played his best against the best teams. His early games against Milwaukee and Boston were not good. And so that was kind of like, okay, is that him sort of just pacing himself? Is it him dogging it a little bit? Or is it, that he just doesn't have that level anymore? I think he has that level. I don't think we can expect him to have that level, that he had for the first 2 rounds last year, prior to
getting hurt
when Josh Hart stepped on his ankle. Like, I feel like we may get something, a Jimmy going forward. It's a little closer to what happened after that, which was, he was okay in the Boston series. I'm a little better than okay, but they don't win that series without Caleb Martin. And then the Denver series, he struggled for a bunch of reasons. Again, I think he just worn down the ankle. And also, I just think Denver's length got to him. And I think that's the question, going into playoffs. And when I say, they go as far as he takes them, I don't mean he has to be nuclear Jimmy all the time. I just mean you can't have these disconnected efforts, because the problem is they're almost better when he doesn't play, if that's the case, because they look to him for that kind of emotional push and to slow the game down and to hunt the mismatches. And and if he's out there kind of just going through the motions, then it's like, okay, then Tyler's like, okay, I need to do this, and then that's when Heat fans get upset. And I feel like that's what happens a lot, and that's why I don't put some of the struggles on Tyler, because I feel like a lot of it was just a trickle down from Jimmy not performing at the level I think that the team maybe has come to expect. But I do think there are some advantages. I see here in the chat questions about Rozier. I mean, there are others who can help him to get a bucket now, and I think one of the things that Spoelstra, likely did over the All-Star break was look at what this offense can look like with the ball in Terry's hands more often.
Yes,
and to see if having a more of a natural point guard to get guys in their spots. Now, he's not traditional point guard, but he's closer obviously to his prime than Lowry was, and he has some of that ability. We've seen, I think the one benefit we've seen so far is he seems to know how to throw Bam a lob, which nobody else on this team does. And you've seen Bam's dunks go up since Rozier came in. And even with Rozier out, it's almost like some of the guys on the team sort of figured out, okay, we can do that too. Like, use your big like a big. I feel like that's one thing that they need to take a look at. So and get him that action more often, because then the mid range becomes more comfortable instead of it being the only option every single time. So I think that there are some things that they can go to at this point. George asks here in the chat here, if I see Haslam. He was at practices I was at. So he's there, he's around. He's also doing his own podcast.
Doing his podcast now.
Yeah, he's everywhere. I wish we'd gotten him on the network.
I know, honestly.
You need to come on. But yeah, it's I think they're more multiple. They have more options for Spoelstra to close with. So it doesn't have to be all Jimmy, but they can't win. Like, if you're going to be in a playoff series and whatever their issues, if you're going against Giannis and Dame, you're going against Brown and Tatum, you're going against, say, a healthy Embiid and Maxey, you can't have your 1A has to play like a 1A. I mean, he has to match what at least one of those guys is doing. And there were times this year that Jimmy has not. Now, if you do look at the stats, it's interesting. He's not that far off from last year at the All-Star break. It's really more games played and then some efficiency drop. But the overall sort of counting and average stats are about the same. I mean, they're not much down. And then he did pick it up big time from an efficiency standpoint and production standpoint after the break last year. So, again, he's had a couple weeks, recharge physically. Emotionally, you can't really say what he's been going through, so you don't know when he comes back. But maybe basketball, for a lot of these guys, when they're going through something, as long as they're given the time to grieve and heal, they come back and basketball becomes kind of a sanctuary for them. So that may be the case for him. He has a lot of other interests at this point, but the thing that it could be anything with him. That's the thing. It's not just I love basketball. He just loves competing. I mean, spades or dominoes so or even in business now. And so I think that will get him going again. And I would expect a better close to the season than we had to start.
And that's sort of what I'm feeling. That's why I'm getting good vibes. There's lots to talk about the Miami Heat. If you want your Heat Central, there's no better place than 5 Reasons Sports Network. This man right here, Greg Sylvander, Brady Hawk, is like the genius that
Brady took over for me.
Found in the rough that will eventually be on the Heat scouting part. Maybe he's not already. To be brutally honest, the questions he asks Spoelstra, he rolls his eyes as though it's like, Brady, I told you that in practice. Don't bring that out in public. So if he's not already on the staff,
that's the funny thing. He doesn't tell him that in practice. It's Brady just sees it on the film. I have had Spo text me at once. It was during a playoff series, and he said, "Brady's a good kid." He said, "He's getting a little close to things right now." So just Spo's used to the narrative questions, and I understand why those are asked. It's an old newspaper thing, but. I think people actually do want to learn about basketball, and so I think Brady and Alex do a good job of that when they go to the games, and we encourage that. And then, George, I'll just answer this one question before this question from George in the chat. How about Triple J becoming a starter? He just changes the vibe of the team. I think that's a card that Spo has in his back pocket for the playoffs. I don't think Jaquez is going to start anytime soon as a regular, but
Yeah.
I think Spo always has a card in his pocket for the playoffs. That one year it was Dragic, one finals it was Miller.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It could be Jaquez this year, but I don't think it's immediate. I think it's more likely when everybody's healthy, probably Caleb Martin is going to play the 4 with this group. Although Jovic is going to get some looks, I think, while Rozier is out. So
Yeah.
I think that's where it's going to go right
A
now.
lot with the Heat. Jovic has showed signs finally of people like us were looking for. Jaquez Jr. has been the guy a lot of us was excited the Heat drafted, that he fit perfect with the Heat, and now everyone around the league is like, shit, why did we let him go to the Heat? It feels like to me they're just scratching the surface, and the rest of the East, the fans aren't. Fans are like, oh, the Heat. It feels like the NBA is like lying in wait for, oh, shoot, we didn't put him away. We'll see. We'll talk more about that. Again, if you want more Heat coverage, no better place than 5 Reasons Sports Network. And we will definitely talk to this gentleman very soon. Scoop, appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Thank you, sir.
The one and only Ethan Scoop Skolnick. We go from one great in the journalism field to a man who set television broadcasting ablaze for over 4 decades. And we've been privileged and honored to have him a part of our family for years now. The one and only Tony Segreto joins me. Good morning, Mr. Segreto.
Where's Defo?
Defo, it's funny. He gets the pick line out, so then he's not here. No, he's okay. He's good. He is more doctor's appointments. I don't know. I feel like he's turned 97. He has like 2 or 3 doctor's appointments every day for whatever. It's like my grandmother when she was like in her 80s and I was driving her to doctor's appointments. Like he has more doctors. I don't know. He's doing fine. He got it out. Everything's progressing fine. Everything's looking good. So I think it's like one of the last remaining doctor's appointments he let me know. But it's fine. I am very happy to be with you. And, of course, this gentleman, the one and only Ed Garcia as well. We'll just say screw a break, and we'll get to it after that since I have you guys here. So I know you guys are huge sports fans. I know, Tony, you've covered major events forever in and out of sports, the sports specifically. I'll ask you both, as you're fans of all sports, and we've talked basketball, Mr. Michigan, for I know recently, not now, but with Juwan Howard, they were flirting with Final Fours and whatnot. Did either of you watch any of this weekend's All-Star Game festivities? It's something I used to watch religiously. All of them. I used to love the dunk. I used to love the skills. I used to love the 3-point. I love the game itself. I would watch in its entirety. I didn't watch 1 second of any of it. So I'm being honest with you. Did either of you watch any of it this weekend? As I know you're both in sports enthusiasts and you are basketball fans.
No. I didn't. I didn't.
I second what Tony said.
I just had to put that out there. I know it's a new day in this world. And what's my favorite part is like the players themselves are being interviewed about the lack of competitiveness. And they're like, yeah, it sucks. And it's like, okay, isn't that on you? Like, isn't it your fault that it's? I don't know. I don't know how they fix it. I just had to put that out there because I find it interesting. Have either of you followed the Caitlin Clark? What's going on with Caitlin Clark? I know Tony's big in women's sports. Maybe not as big as our friend Jim Sarney, but more than we are. Have you guys followed that at all? Because it is an interesting story. She is fun, and she has put an eye on a sport that I don't pay as much attention to as I probably should. Have you guys watched that at all? Tony, Ed, Caitlin Clark setting the modern day women's college basketball scoring record.
Refer to you first, Ed.
I only follow the Cavender twins.
I bet you do.
No, I watched Caitlin Arnold, and she's a humble girl, and she went to Iowa because she dreamed of going to Iowa. And I just think it's a great story, and it gets buried. It gets buried against the NBA, unfortunately, and the men. But I think it's a great story, and one that we should take notice of, because she is going to continue to set records at Iowa, and then she's going to go to the NBA and set the same amount of records. She's an amazing young woman to watch.
All right, so I know football's your mainstay, Mr. Garcia. No football. So what are you? And you're not watching basketball. It feels like you're very heavily involved in the world of Texas Roadhouse. I know you talked about it last week. You're always scouting new locations. What else is going on with Texas Roadhouse? I know it's funny because we do the food show with Mayo, and now that Tony's down here for now, we're going to wrangle a time where we all can get together and we can sit down and have some of the fantastic food at Texas Roadhouse locally. But I know when we go to these restaurants, there's always specials. They're always messing with the menu. And I know what's great about Texas Roadhouse is consistency, continuity. You guys do tinker with it. You talked about it with different desserts. I'm dreaming about the bread pudding and some of the other things you guys are installing. But it's about people being able to get what they're used to getting. I understand that, but there are things that come and go. We know that you're doing the butcher contest. We're down to what was it, the finals of the butcher contest. So how's that going? I know you were out there. You're like you're teaching classes about butchering, which I find impressive in the middle of the rest of what you do. What's going on with that?
Well, this past week was super busy, so I did not have a chance with sports, unfortunately, because we had President's Day on Monday, Valentine's Day, so it was a great, great week. As far as the meat cutting competition, we are down to the final 12. I will be going to Kansas City, Missouri, first week of March.
Oh, nice.
And so they have a huge cutoff. We rent a hockey rink, and we bring them all out there, and they cut. It's really cool. They take a sirloin muscle, a filet muscle, and a ribeye muscle. And so let's say you start off with 10 pounds of sirloin and you cut 8 pounds. You get 80% of the yield. And that 8 pounds, they legit measure. We do this every day. You got to see part of it when you were at Texas Roadhouse, but we measure the thickness, the length to make sure that it meets all the correct criteria. There's not too much fat, all the different pieces that are on there. And when you add up the 3 scores, of the sirloin, the filet, and the ribeye muscle, the top percentage wins. So, and that person will win $25,000.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How long has this been going on? Because I know you've talked about this through the years.
Yeah, we've been doing it probably about long. So I'm done year 17. So we're going on over 20 years at least that I'm aware of. I mean, without our meat cutters, I mean, that's just a big part of who we are and what we do.
That's the whole thing right there.
And
that's the whole thing right there.
And that's why our prices, again, we can, keep it low. We're not, and the freshness. I mean, think about, a lot of steakhouses, there's a factory somewhere that, someone is cutting or a machine is cutting it. And then they cryovac it, or they keep them they call it really cold, but it's basically frozen, and they ship it. Versus, Texas Roadhouse, I mean, that steak is more than likely cut that day. The only one we don't do, and again, all transparency, is the porterhouse, because you need a bandsaw. And, quite frankly, we don't sell too many of them because, we have the bone-in ribeye, which we do cut in-house. And that bone-in ribeye, I mean, I know I shipped a few of those, Tony, to your house. I mean, that is...
But we had it the last time. We're like, you would get this at any steakhouse for 3 times the price, and it wouldn't be any better. Like you made Defo and I. We're like, I don't know. We're trying to be conservative in our taste. You're like, you're getting the bone-in ribeye. Okay, Ed. We were thinking steaks. It's not like we were thinking fish, but we were thinking steaks anyways. You're like, well, if you're gonna get steak, you got to get the bone-in ribeye. And Defo and I were like, bone-in ribeye at Texas. Not judging, but we're like. I never thought to get a bone-in ribeye at Texas Roadhouse, and it came out, and we're like, "Oh, shoot, this is freaking great!"
How often do you get meat delivered to you, Ed?
Twice a week.
Twice a week.
Twice a week, and and it's naturally aged, which is gives it that tenderness on there. We don't do any chemicals or additives, and I'll tell you, as much working with Texas Roadhouse, if I put a competitor steak and our steak next to you, you could tell the difference. And you can tell that people, because there are additives out there you can put on a steak to soften it up. And ours is all natural.
Oh, wow.
So the filet is already a very tender loin. So when we get it, it's fresh from the cow, 7 to 28 days. And now you can age them a little bit longer, but it becomes very challenging to cut. It becomes, almost like jello-y. But, in our sirloins, 24 to 40 days, it's just, those are the cool things. So our meat cutters, when they get the shipment, they rotate it to make sure they have the right amount of days, and then they cut depending on what they need, for that day. They'll grab, the muscles and go from there. It really is an art, and it's a unique person that, hey, can work in a 28-degree room for 8-9 hours, just cutting meat all day. And again, it's, when you go to your local grocery stores, great steaks, but when you buy the ribeyes or the steaks from this grocery store, you're buying a package and it gives you the total weight. These guys are cutting every day to specific ounces and lengths and weights and height. It's really, really impressive. So, and that's what, makes Texas Roadhouse great. Just one of the many things that we do, and having people is just hand cut steaks. You can't go wrong.
Someone just commented on the bread. What is it about your bread that makes it so damn good? Let's be honest, Ed, right now.
100%. There's, making it 100% fresh in house is, what makes the difference. You saw the process. We start off. It's, a huge ball of dough, and we cut it, and it's coming out of the oven fresh every 5 minutes. It's got a little bit of sweetness in it, and basically some people call it a yeast roll, but our Texas Roadhouse rolls. And then, we serve it with either our homemade whipped butter or the honey cinnamon butter. And it's legit honey and cinnamon. And, on the weekends, we're making 60 to 90 pounds of butter a day.
God.
Whipping it fresh. You don't get that anywhere else. The bake position is, it is a very, very challenging position. I can tell you, Lubie would struggle.
I'm not that. Survival at Roadhouse would be tough for me. I'm not saying.
You would struggle because you'd be eating one roll out of every dozen.
I'd be eating. I'd be 400 pounds.
Do you sell the butter or anything like that at the stores?
We do. You can actually get a dozen bread to go, as well as the butter. It comes with the butter. And sometimes, and I'll give you a little secret, my family, they buy a quart of the honey cinnamon butter, and then they throw it in the freezer. And every morning they take out like a little block, and they just put it on like their butter tray and leave it in the fridge. And they put it on their English muffins or bagels in the morning. So they're having that honey cinnamon butter. We do have, some stuff I'll let you guys know in the next couple of weeks, but that are going to be hitting the local grocery stores.
Really?
Yeah, Texas.
I was wondering, I'm like, why are they selling their bread? I get it, you want it to be special, but like, it can be special and still be in my home.
Barbecue sauce and a few other items are coming out there.
Really?
Yes. Very, very, very excited.
Yes,
you will not be able to buy it in the store, but you will be able to see it. I think Costco might be one of the first ones that's going to be getting some of our products out there.
That's exciting.
Nice.
Any new places you're going to open up?
I have Lake Park that's coming up June 10th. And actually today, this afternoon, I'm going to be checking out Davie. I mentioned last week.
Really?
Yeah.
Look at Tony.
I'll be there every day. Every day.
He's gonna be like Norm. He's gonna be like Cheers. Okay, I know we gotta let you go. Oh yeah, where in Davie actually?
Well, we're looking right off 595 in the University area, right there.
Oh, nice.
So,
wow, that's great.
Check out 2 spots today, and fingers crossed that we can. Again, it's a long process, but I'm going to talk to the landlord and see what he has to say, and hopefully it fits our prototype, because we want it to feel and look like a Texas Roadhouse, just like all the other ones that we have in Florida.
That would be great, though. That part of Broward County. Miramar's not that far, and again, we're up by me. I have Coconut Creek, but that the more central Broward County doesn't have anyone close to it, so that would be really right by the highway. That would be really accessible. Look, you said a word, and it's funny, we talk about all these different things that make Texas Roadhouse great, and they all sort of dance around the one word freshness, and that's the thing that sort of separates mom and pops from franchises, right? Is you get fresh fish, you get fresh meat, you get fresh bread, you get fresh poultry, you get fresh, right? That's, again, what's great. You yourself said it. You were just not even trying to push it. You were just being honest with the things you do. The word fresh was attached with like every freaking thing. Like, you guys just keep that small business mentality and just have the large business continuity. And it impresses me every time. And we're really grateful and proud to be associated with you guys. And yes, please go to Davie.
I'm trying my best. Anytime I can find sites, I'm all about opening up more Texas Roadhouse. So it's that 11 years ago, that was the task they gave me. They said, hey, you're in charge of Miami. And we didn't have any restaurants in Miami, so I'm very happy to, hey, here we are. We're at 11, just along the East Coast here, and going on to a lot more, hopefully.
Okay. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Mazel tov, and we will talk to you again next week, my friend. Thank you.
Have a great week.
One and only Ed Garcia. We're going to take a quick break because I do want to make sure we get our Texas Roadhouse spot in. You do hear the voice.
We have to get something in here.
You get the voice of this gentleman, so we don't want to miss more Tony Segreto. But after this, you will get more Tony Segreto, Defo Show without Defo, but with Lubie and the man, the myth, the legend himself, Tony Segreto. More of that next year on South Florida Live.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Kickin, I know. You don't trust the perch. I know. All righty. Back with the man himself, Tony Segreto. Again, good morning to you, sir. We switched things up a little bit. Started with Ed, and we'll finish with you. Yeah. So you did pay attention to the Caitlin Clark thing. Okay. So where do you? Because you've been involved with covering sports again since the 70s, if not before. Women's basketball has grown by leaps and bounds. Women's sports have grown by leaps and bounds. But it's not like there wasn't women's greats, right? Cheryl Miller, Nancy Klein, Cheryl Swoops. The list goes on and on. I've been dismissive of Caitlin Clark in the sense that I haven't watched her. I admit it. And I don't know because I haven't heard a lot of people put her with the litany of greats. Our friend Jim Sarney adores her and puts her at the top of the pantheon. You followed women's sports and been a big proponent of it since its inception. Where are you with her? I know you talked about her story. You talked about coming out of Iowa. You put her amongst the great of all greats. Do you think what she's doing, the shooting the ball from 38 feet away, is expanding the women's game? What are your thoughts on Caitlin Clark overall?
She's a total package.
Okay.
She is. She's pretty enough to be, she's very charming, and she's very good. She's very competitive, but she'll cut your heart out to win the game. And it's you hate to put a certain label on it, but I think she's the real deal. I think she's a total package. I think she's had the women's game, which was already reaching an apex. She set it higher, and I think she's great for the game. And I think that advertisers should go to her and say, what can they do? What can we do to market her a little bit? And that's what I'm saying, that not enough people know about her. And I think if you did and you saw her, the way she played and the way she carries her team, she is really, really interesting and really a force. And I think at the top of her game.
I'm not as bad as Michael Nyman, but I'm not much better. I'll own that. I mean, I don't know. The women's game it's weird because I actually used to watch it a lot in the '90s. Before it became popular, I watched Tennessee and UConn. I thought it was great. I'd love Summit and Oriema hating each other. I thought Oriema coming up and trying to knock off Summit, I thought was classic, and I watched a lot in the '90s. And I used to watch the Houston Comets because they were freaking great with Swoops and Cynthia Cooper. And then I don't know, the last 20 years I sort of lost touch, and it's actually exploded in that time. So I guess I'm counterculture. So we're in the basketball season. You rolled your eyes about the All-Star weekend. I brought it up as a joke, not even meaning to talk about it with Ed, but I do want to talk about it with you because this is kicking it old school, and Defo and you rhapsodize about the days gone by, and I join in because I'm like a 75-year-old in a 41-year-old's body, and I own that. I am the 41-year-old does creep out. I am modern day in many ways, but I do miss. Look, I wasn't around. I don't know what it was in the 70s and 80s. I'm sure they cared the entire game, but I do miss when I was growing up into my 20s, where, yeah, the first 3 quarters they screwed around. I mean, they didn't screw it like they do now, but they screwed around in the game. But then the fourth quarter, they cared, and in the last like 3-4 minutes of the fourth quarter, it was they went at it. Like they really gave a crap who won, and there was pride, and you saw guys going at it, and I miss that. And I don't know what. And now they're talking about, well, you have to pay them, and I'm like, aren't they getting? I don't know what. And look, I'm not the guy that's like, well, they're already making this stage. Look, it's. I believe in our system of economics, and I think if you can make more money, go get it. So I'm not going to hate on guys making even more. Look, if they're making it, there's a reason. The owners are making way more. So I don't defend the owners. I'm all about the workforce and this and that. So I don't care about that. I'm like, it's not the money. They're making enough money. You can tell they're making enough money. They're very happy with the amount of money they're making. They just don't care. I'm curious how you make them care about an All-Star game, because now literally every single sports All-Star game doesn't matter. Now there's none of them matter. Like the Pro Bowl has become literally a child's game. Yes, football is a child's game, not the way NFL players play it. Now they're playing flag football. That's literally only a game for like kids up until they're 15. Baseball. The All-Star game.
The All-Star game in baseball still has
matters a little, but I don't know. It feels like when I was growing up, they still all mattered, and now I don't know if any of them do. And basketball has totally been thrown away. And it's like, I don't know if it disgusts me. It makes me sad. I'm not mad at it. They're allowed to do what they want. It just makes me sad because I was thinking about it like Sunday, and I was getting updates all weekend, so I knew what was going on. But it didn't dawn on me for 1 second to watch. And I was like, damn, that sucks. Like, I was in college. I'd be partying every day, and I'd still watch every event. So it's like I didn't care. I was watching stuff with Shirley, and it wasn't because she told me to or whatever.
My daughter came into town. She's here for a week, and she leaves tomorrow. And she had her friends over, and that's what we did. We sat and chatted. We went to the pool.
Yeah, but you would have at least had it on. You would have had a family around and had the stuff on 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
I didn't even have it on. I didn't even have it on. And now my wife says to me this: let me know in the last 3 minutes of the game is going on so I can sit and see who's going to win.
Yeah, but it's not even that anymore.
And the story. And yeah, I think when the NBA playoffs start, you'll find a little more interest. But until then, and now we have spring training starting, which is exciting. The Marlins play on Saturday, for God's sake. Let's embrace baseball, and I think that's something that this year we'll see what happens. I get a sense that this year it's going to be a lot different than any other year, and that people are going to gravitate to the game because they missed it, and they missed it a lot.
Well, and that's the thing is, I don't know. So the sport of baseball and basketball, baseball was always like that, though. Outside of Cal Ripken, like maybe I don't know about the 50s and 60s, but from the 80s on, guys missed games. Like that wasn't unusual. It's 162 games, so the missing games thing has never really been a big deal for baseball. It's the way they bastardized it, the way the analytics took the game to some weird ass level where they made it all about the extremes. I mean, that's what it is. Like they made it about home run, walk, strikeout, where like strikeouts were actually it's like, you know how businesses have shrink where they just factor in automatically, yeah, we're gonna have like 15% stolen, where yeah, they get arrest people they catch stealing, but reality wise they don't give a crap about stolen goods because they have insurance, one, and two, they automatically assume more. They're actually conservative, they assume more are gonna get stolen than probably do. Like strikeouts have become that in baseball, where strikeout, Defo jokes, it's the truth. Like, you would rather hit a dribbler like a jerk off than striking out. I remember growing up, and I was horrible at baseball. I was good at every sport but baseball. But I played from age freaking 3 to age 14 because you just played baseball. That's what you did. I played every sport, but like rec. Yeah, eventually Sunrise caught up, and by the time I was in my teen years, it had every rec league. But growing up, really all they had was baseball and soccer. Soccer was the one that they had, soccer, and they had baseball. Basketball didn't come around until I was like 10. And football, rec-wise, I think didn't come around until I was a little older. But like, you played baseball. I was horrible at it. And even being horrible, you got your bat on the ball, right? You did something, or you took a walk. You didn't strike out. Striking out was like fucking sacrilegious. Like, if you struck out, you were like, oh, great, now they're all gonna be giving me looks and bitching at me. And like, even as a kid, you knew not to strike out. The fact that they just accept strikeouts as just like a part of the game, like that, so I don't want to say ruined it. It's whatever. People still love it. That's great. It hurt for me, right? Like, and my dad's a guy that would watch entire games all season long. Every night the Marlins are on, my dad's watching. My dad himself has told me, yeah, I don't know the last time I watched the game from beginning to end. Like, I don't, either said, I don't know. Like, he can't remember. Like, that's, so I don't know it, and I don't know how you fix it.
When my son was born, I held him in my arms, and I recited the 1968 Yankee starting lineup. I knew it by heart.
It was like 30 years, 20 years later, 30 years later.
Starting lineup today, I don't even have a clue, no clue at all. And that's just the name of the game. But still, I think, it's the greatest game around other than football. But I mean, it's poetry in motion. It's a human game of chess. It's just a great game. And I should see Jim Sarney just contacted us and said, well, Dodgers and Padres play tomorrow night on ESPN. Yes. So we have baseball, and if it's a little bit clunky to start with, that's because all the starters aren't in. But it'll get rolling, and I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see it come back, and I'm excited to see the Yankees play, and take my daughter to a Yankee game. So,
well, I mean, the Yankees and Dodgers fans should be excited. The Yankees went all in again, and the Dodgers signed literally every Asian player that was available.
That is another
line up to rotation. It's freaking insane.
That's another thing. The Asians are really coming to bear, and they're good. They're really they're good.
Boy, they all went to the Dodgers. That's what, like, everyone. There was the 3 different guys that were like being. People were like freaking bidding on, and I was like, no, we're going to take all of them. And it's like, oh, Jesus. So, yeah, I mean, the baseball season is going to be interesting. It's just, I don't know. It's lost a lot of luster for me. Basketball as well. Look, basketball, I do get into
basketball, it. I swear, I don't know. There's something about the sport. There's, you're right.
Well, no one's playing. I mean, it's clear what's happening to basketball. Is Shaq said it. Is it 15 years ago now? Wow, Shaq said it winning before he came to the Heat. When he was like, yeah, the regular season doesn't matter. We don't care about the regular season. Like, Shaq said it himself. And then from that point on, it's been the case. And then what's so funny is, as great as a coach as Greg Popovich is, and it was a smart strategy, and it elongated careers of Ginobili, Parker, and Duncan, and they won a lot, he's the one that openly started this crap with maintenance. And that's fine. And winning titles is what matters, but it's literally made the regular season stupid. Not even like boring, whatever. It's just dumb. Like, I literally when I wait till football's over, then I'll care. But like that, it never was like that. I was watching basketball, college basketball too, from beginning to end. And now it's like, it's like nails on a chalkboard. Like, I don't care about it until we're in February. Late February, it's like, okay, now it's time for basketball, even though the season just started in like October, November.
Yeah, we're talking about the playoffs already.
Yeah, playoffs in like a month.
Where'd the season go? Where'd the season go?
Yeah.
It's out the window.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's a different, I mean, and I get it. Sports is just different, or the way we live life is different. But yeah, I mean, the fact that guys are going to automatically miss 20 games a year, it's like missing a game. 5 games was a big deal. Missing 20 games a year is an automatic thing. It put a damper on the sport, but we'll see. I don't know. Look, it seems wide open in the NBA to me right now, so that's always fun. It gets people into it. And baseball, we'll see. The Marlins made the playoffs last year, and we changed the GM, changed the president. The coach stays, wins Coach of the Year, and then we hear in the middle of the offseason, everyone's up for grabs except Yuri Perez. Okay, so it's like, all right, so they're the same with Marlins, and even though their win total's higher because on the field they overachieved, people in the game are very openly saying, I don't trust that win total. So down here, yet again, even though in New York and Chicago and Baltimore and maybe Seattle and Los Angeles and Boston, they're ready for baseball. Down here, we're like, because
we are ready for baseball in New York. They are gunning for the season. Detroit, same way. Philadelphia, the same way. They can't wait. They can't wait. And here, is it baseball season?
Well, and then that's the thing, though. Like, you can't say stuff like that in the off season and then expect fans to be chomping at the bit.
Exactly.
You're coming off a playoff run. You're coming off, and people sort of got into it by the end of the year. As much as our friend Brian likes to talk shit about the attendance, they were getting good attendance by the end of the year, and people were going to games, and we were talking about it on this show, and people were getting excited, and then they get rid of Kim Meng, they don't make her happy, and that's fine. I'm coming to find out she may not have been good at building up the young prospects, and she wasn't. Their lineup sucked. And that was in large part to her and her predecessors. I admit it, fine. And to pluck from the raised tree is not always is an interesting move, fine. But to make the statement and then go and get no one and and lose everyone, Arise is up for grabs. He's still on the team, but he's up for grabs. And your big bat now just signed somewhere else for less money, so you may have been able to keep him. It's like, okay. So that's the problem, and maybe that's where I am. Maybe there's still parts around the country that still give a crap about baseball, and that's great. It's hard.
The city, a doctor once told me this. We were having drinks somewhere, and he said, "The city with bones." I said, "What?" He said, "The city with bones." So what are you talking about? I said, "Well, in South Florida, we don't have bones. But in New York, Philadelphia, Boston, Detroit, those in particular, those have bones. They care. They care about their baseball. They care about their basketball. They care about their football. They care about their hockey. They care about it."
Yeah, well, no, look, and they, again, like I fought with a lot of people being born and raised here, when you have hundreds of years of history for every sport, it makes sense. And again, we're building it, and we do care about our Dolphins, and that's fine. And we've grown to care about our Heat.
This is a football
ways. Well, no, look, again, and to me, and the Panthers are playing really well. Again, last night they blew a 2-0 lead, but win in overtime. They now have, I think they're 2 points back of the best record in all of the sport. They were in the Stanley Cup Finals last year. 2 years ago, they won the President's Trophy for the best record or most points in the regular season. They were setting records offensively. They have been now, this is 3 years in a row, they're consistently good. Yeah. They spent money. They've done all the things. They're finally getting fans in the stands, and that's fantastic. Does anyone talk about them? But to me, if they continue this is what the Marlins need to follow. The Panthers, don't worry about any of that crap. Don't mess with it. You have a real heart and soul dude in Kachuk that people can identify with. You have a team that's really fun. You have a coach that doesn't screw around. Don't screw with it. Keep this team together, because that is the way to build culture and build a fan base.
That's the key. Keeping them together. They're all, every owner now is, let's trade this one. Let's trade that one. And they think that they're helping, but they're not. They're hurting. And I would like a team to just stick with its starting 9, it's starting 5, it's starting, whatever. and go with it, and then
Yes.
just stick together.
I'm begging the Panthers to do that. Look, it feels like they've been working toward this and they're trying. If they can, we'll support it. I know the Northerners mock us. We will. The Marlins have to do that, and I think that will make baseball fucking matter down here. We'll see. What always matters is each and every Wednesday when we get to talk to this gentleman. We love you. Appreciate
Thank
your
you so
smile.
much,
Appreciate your
Lubie. Thank
flair.
you for everything. You're the best.
Thank you for everything. You're the best. We love you, and we will definitely talk to you next Wednesday, my friend.
See you Friday.
And see you Friday, Mr. Goldstream Park, the one and only Tony Segreto. Each and every Wednesday, you can check him out right here, Kicking It Old School with Tony Segreto. You can also check out right here on South Florida Live, Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. Yesterday was a fantastic experience. That's the newest Italian oven location in Cooper City. Today, one of my favorite places around town. Was just there with my wife for brunch a couple weeks back. Very happy. If I can do, that's the move. Every couple weeks to get out the batch, I'll be a happy man. 1 o'clock today will be a batch, New Southern Kitchen and Tap in Fort Lauderdale. Very easy to find. Free parking within a minute walk away at the parking garage right there. Just park where it says 4 hours of parking. I don't mind invisible, George, before we get out of here. I don't mind invisible. Just don't not care. There's got to be a way to care, whereas you spend money. Again, you got to spend money to make money. Everyone that's talking on my thing has been in business in some form. Spend money to make money, spend money, and then stay away. We'll see if the Marlins do that. Batch definitely is all about spending money to make money, taking care of the customers. We're going to be there today at 1 o'clock. Looking forward to that. Appreciate everyone that's joined me this morning, along with my kitten who's made her home. Her perch fell last night, so she's mad at me. So what she does is lay next to me and annoy me. But I adore her. I adore my dog Wolf. My wife, I adore you all. Defo is fine. It was a doctor appointment to wrap things up from what he said. He took the PICC line out. No more IV treatments. We're not doctors for a long time, and he will be joining us at 1 o'clock as well. Tomorrow we will, I think, once again, have a trivia challenge with the one and only Dave Gurgles Gurgly. A lot of one and onlys. I only mean it, paying homage, not disrespecting the term. Appreciate you guys checking us out. Check us out again today, 1 o'clock, and tomorrow at 8 a.m. for the absent diva, for Tony Segreto, for Ed Garcia, and thank you again, Ethan Skolnick from 5 Reasons Sports. The Defo Show, no Defo, with Lubie, here on South Florida Live. Check you out at 1 o'clock, the Mike Mayo's Lunchbox, and 8 o'clock tomorrow.